Next year's start times are out. Teams are testing a new short track package, and NASCAR still hasn't finalized the 2026 championship format. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you're doing well. Little midweek check-in. Off-season? What off-season? Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Preece, and their race teams are at Bristol Motor Speedway today, taking part in a Goodyear tire test. This is also NASCAR's first chance to test the increased horsepower at a short track. And shout out to Bozy Tatarovich pointing out that in this clip from RFK, there's no rear diffuser on the back of Preece's car, or if there is one, it's the smaller short track package diffuser. So not only is Goodyear testing a tire that they hope will be less temperature sensitive, they're also testing 750 horsepower in the next-gen car, and apparently they're testing the short track aero package at a track NASCAR previously used the intermediate aero package at for whatever reason. So there's a lot going on this week at Bristol Motor Speedway and beyond. Today, NASCAR unveiled the start times for every 2026 truck, O'Reilly Auto Parts, and Cup Series event. Just talking about the Cup Series schedule, there's a lot. Most races will start around 3 p.m. Eastern time, similar to this year. That includes the Dover Motor Speedway All-Star race. No lights at the Monster Mile, so a mid-afternoon $1 million showdown. I hope NASCAR, the teams, do something bold, something different to spice up that event. Otherwise, okay. Looking at the schedule, there are 3 straight Sunday evening races in the middle of the summer, beginning with Chicagoland, July 5th. That will be a night race, followed up by the Midsummer Atlanta night race, and then North Wilkesboro getting a points date. 3 Sundays in a row, 3 Sunday nights in a row in the middle of the hot summer. Probably a smart decision. It's going to be hot during the day, but hopefully during the race at least, there'll be some shade, some shadows. Also, backing up a moment, I believe Kansas Spring is now listed as a Big Fox race, not FS1, so I think that means Fox maybe added 1 race to network TV, took 1 race off cable, so I think that's a good sign. Also, I noticed that the Homestead Miami season finale is a 3 p.m. local start. East Coast, of course. That should finish under the lights, which I think will be a flashy backdrop to crown next season's champion. Still, a lot of USA network races, and I know there's been news of how USA is sort of breaking off from NBC, but NASCAR will still be part of the USA package. The USA network ratings were not good this season, continuing to put races on a fringe cable network directly up against the NFL, which is on broadcast over-the-air channels. That's a tough matchup for the NASCAR Cup Series, but hey, the industry got the bag, so that's the trade-off. More money for the sport, the teams, the tracks, harder for the average fan to watch Las Vegas fall, or the fact that the Southern 500 is buried on cable. Disrespectful for one of the historic crown jewel Cup Series events, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a broad look at next season's NASCAR Cup Series start times. A lot of fans noticed that in the bulletin NASCAR put out today, the final 10 races of the season are bolded and are still labeled playoff races. Oh, this confirms the playoffs are sticking around. I would save the reactions for later. I don't think these press releases or even, Vice President Brian Herbst used the word playoffs in a Sports Business Journal report earlier this week. I don't think that confirms anything. I think it's simply a placeholder. NASCAR needs a placeholder, so they're going to default to the format that's been used for the past 8+ seasons. In fact, Mike Ford of NASCAR Communications confirmed on the Hauler Talk podcast this week that NASCAR has still not finalized next year's championship format. Mike Ford admitted he's not sure if a new format will be announced in 2 weeks or 2 months. Transitioning to more playoff format discussion, I encourage you to check out the most recent Hauler Talk podcast episode. I will link that down in the description. In this episode, Mike Ford referenced NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell's State of the Sport comments from a couple weeks ago.
One of the concerns is future drivers coming up through the system, having multiple wins, and not necessarily winning a championship. As you look at the future of the sport, making sure that a driver who has delivered all season long has the ability to be named a champion and not have something maybe come down to one race. So
Mike Ford elaborated on those comments in this most recent podcast. I'll read this one quote. Ford said, "I think one of the things that keeps O'Donnell up at night is a Connor Zilisch type. Whoever the next 12-year-old wonder kid out there is now looks at the championship format in NASCAR and says, I don't like the fact that I can win 10 races like Connor did and not win the championship. Let me look at F1 or IndyCar." Yeah, I mean, if you're NASCAR, you want to ensure that the next great generation of drivers want to compete in your series. You want them to view NASCAR as the pinnacle of American motorsports. And for decades now, that's almost been a given. Obviously, IndyCar, the Indianapolis 500 itself is maybe the greatest race in America. But as series goes, as championships go, the Cup Series championship has been the most prestigious in this country for at least for my lifetime. But F1, obviously huge globally. We know that was kind of the trajectory Connor Zilisch was on before, got in touch with Kevin Harvick, eventually came back to the States and is here now. But as F1 continues to grow worldwide, but especially here in the United States, the next Connor Zilisch, to Mike Ford, Steve O'Donnell's point, could chase F1 and pass up NASCAR. So ensuring NASCAR championships still mean what they used to, are still as prestigious as they've been historically, yeah, that's important. Absolutely. And it is refreshing now to hear almost the entire industry unanimously agree that, hey, having your championship come down to an arbitrary one-race tiebreaker, essentially, yeah, that's not the most legitimate way to crown a champion. I'm glad that now everyone seems to agree there. Probably a few years too late, but better late than never. Justin Marks, owner of Trackhouse, was on SiriusXM earlier this week, and he gave his take on what the playoffs, what the championship format should be going forward, and I felt like I resonated with his opinion pretty closely, so I thought I'd share it. Justin Marks said, quote, "The champion needs to be crowned the person who performs the best over the season." Now, I know that sounds like I'm saying 36 races. I think a playoff format is important to build excitement towards the end, but I don't think it's good for the sport if a champion is decided by a blown tire in the last race. Ultimately, I just want what's best for the sport. As long as the best drivers and teams are consistently being rewarded, as long as every Sunday the best drivers are battling door to door, as long as I get my stock car racing fix every single week, I am satisfied. And if you ask me what I think the best championship format is going forward, I would argue that a form of the 10-race chase is the best overall compromise. It'd be a large enough sample size that I don't think anyone would be questioning the contenders at year's end. It's enough time for storylines to develop over a couple of months. But it's also condensed enough to give that final stretch its own flavor. And the odds of us getting an epic Stewart versus Edwards or Keselowski versus Johnson type battle, I think, go up. I think we could get those kinds of battles every couple of years. That's why I believe that a form of the 10-race chase is the right balance. Look at it another way. The original chase went from 2004 to 2013 with a few modifications throughout, but over that decade-long span, when we look back, I don't think anyone questions any of those champions. Not like they questioned Joey Logano or even Kyle Larson this year or Kyle Busch 2015. There really aren't any asterisks from 2004 to 2013. Nobody questions Kurt Busch winning in 04. No one questions Tony's 2 titles, even the tiebreaker in 2011. The only championship from that decade that maybe people still question is Jimmy Johnson in 2007, and that's only because Jeff Gordon had an incredibly consistent year, had like a 7.5 average finish, but I don't see 2007 as some huge scandal. I mean, Jimmy Johnson won 10 races that year. I mean, I don't put an asterisk by 2007, but my point is we would not have the legitimacy questions we have today if we went back to a form of the old OG chase. And we should even bring the name back, the Chase. It was around long enough. I think built up enough of a brand identity. I think that's a recognizable name, and it sounds cool. It sounds like racing. Chase. The Chase for the Cup. They named a whole video game Chase for the Cup. It sounds great. Rolls off the tongue. I think a form of the 10-race chase where top 10 in points make the chase, and then you could reserve an 11th and 12th spot for the next best guys with the most wins. Because, if Shane Van Gisbergen wins 4 road races next year, yeah, I think you could argue he deserves a chase spot, but he'd get a wild card spot. He wouldn't be replacing one of the top 10 most consistent drivers all regular season. Award bonus points for wins, stage wins, etc. And I think you've got a great format there. I think you have the optimal balance. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I could be. Again, I ultimately just want what's best for the sport. If you could show me a crystal ball and say, hey, look, Eric, in 2026, NASCAR returned to an old 36 race schedule. And now, boom, in 2036, NASCAR's as culturally relevant as ever. If you could show me that future, then I would sign up for a full season points format yesterday. But I'm not convinced that timeline is a reality. I'm not necessarily convinced a return to the 10-race chase fixes all of those problems either, but I do still feel like that is the best modern-day balance. That's my take. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm sure I'll get comments on both sides of the aisle here. The 36 race full season supporters are out in full force. I respect it. But like Justin Marks said, I think there is value to having sort of a stretch run at the end of the year. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and we will all wait patiently for NASCAR to eventually announce the new 2026 championship format. That is going to do it for today's show, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe for more NASCAR news, content, commentary all year, all off season long. Really appreciate your generous support. Plenty more to come later this week and next. Stay tuned. I will see you again real soon. Have a good one, folks.